term Latinx seems to be one that progressives have championed. They believe that it's the right way to refer to people in the Hispanic community because it's a non-gendered way to talk about people. But what do people in the actual community feel about this? Are they in favor of being referred to as Latinx, or would they prefer different labels? Well, Gallup did a poll, and the results, I want to say, are shocking, but to be honest with you, I kind of suspected this. I'm curious what you think. So here's the question: Hispanic Americans' preferred term for their ethnic subgroup. The term Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx are used to refer to the ethnic subgroup of Americans. Which term do you think should generally be used? Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, another term, or does it not matter to you at all? Let's look at the results. So the majority of respondents, let's take a look at this graphic, 23%, there we go, 23% of respondents say that they would like to be referred to as Hispanic, 15% say Latino, and only 15% say Latinx.
No, 4%.
Is it 4%?
Yeah, Latino is 15%, Latinx is just 4%.
Oh, my bad, yes,
Well,
sorry.
my favorite, of course, is 57%, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, yes.
So look, we're progressive guys, and we love the progressive community. But sometimes we come up with slogans that don't make any sense, or words that.
Or we speak on behalf of others when we should allow them to speak for themselves.
Yeah, and I say we, but the progressive community is a bunch of different people, right? Nobody voted on it, right? Did they ask everyone who's progressive, hey, should we go with Latinx? No, some rando, honestly, likely at a college campus, came up with it. And then other folks on college campuses said that's the correct thing to do now. And then they said, we speak for the whole progressive community. Do you? I don't remember voting, right? And much more importantly in this case, they're like, okay, now we speak for all Latinos. Do you? Because it doesn't look like you do. Now let's be fair to that side too though, right? Because to be fair, a lot of folks haven't even heard of Latinx. They never, because it's relatively new, it's invented, right? So they don't know they're supposed to be offended by the other things.
Right.
Right? It's kind of a funny thing though, guys, if you're on the left, to teach people that you're supposed to be offended at something and then have them get offended and then switch to a different name. Okay, you don't need to do all that stuff. There's plenty of things to be actually offended by. Like where our lives are on the line. Police abuse, and we can go on and on. We don't have universal health care. We have low wages. All these different things that not only affect our lives, but affect our, not just our wealth and our livelihood, but our actual lives oftentimes. And so look, I come at it from personal experience too. I remember there was controversy here when I said Justin Trudeau, the leader of Canada, he dressed up as Aladdin once, and they're like, "Oh, brown face," and I'm like, "That's not a thing. Nobody got lynched for brown face. I'm brown face, okay?" And I can tell you, I don't care, right? He was Middle Eastern. I'm Middle Eastern, or he's not Middle Eastern. He dressed up as Aladdin, which is Middle Eastern, which by the way is a cartoon, not real. And people are like, "No, you're not allowed to defend him." I'm like, "But we never had a vote on that." And why is your opinion weighed more than my opinion? Oh, I go to Oberlin. Okay, if you say so. Okay, I don't know why. Like the people who insist that they are the hall monitors of political correctness never got elected, right? They didn't get elected by progressives or Latinos or Hispanics, right?
But more importantly, I think that it distracts from the issues that people do genuinely care about.
Yes.
And what it does is it provides campaigning tools for Democrats who want to deflect from core issues that materially impact Americans' lives, right? Like, don't give them material for their part in the culture wars. But that's not to say that we shouldn't respect people who want to be referred in any way, right? So if they want to be referred in a specific way, I respect that. But you want to hear that from the actual community, the actual people who, I think pronouns in the transgender community is a perfect example of that. They clearly want to be referred to the gender that they identify with, and I respect that wholeheartedly. But making up non-gendered language on behalf of the Hispanic community is just, I don't think it's smart politics. I don't think it's smart social skills either. And then let's go to the part of the poll that polled Black Americans. And I thought this was really fascinating as well, because there's more of a divide here. So Black Americans were fairly mixed on the question, with a straight preference for, or a slight preference, I should say, for Black. 52% would prefer to be referred to as Black over African American, where 44% preferred that label. 4% had no opinion either way. So that's actually a really difficult, one, because it really depends on who you're talking to. The person that my husband used to mentor, he's an adult now, said that he doesn't like to be referred to as Black. But I also know I have Black friends who don't like being referred to as Black. I mean, who do like to be referred to as Black. They don't like to be referred to as people of color or African American. So it gets complicated depending on who you're talking to and what they prefer.
Yeah, so first thing I'd ask for you guys, for everybody, is can we just be a little bit less judgmental of everybody? So there's so much actual racism in the world. I mean, Jesus, it's filled to the rim. And so you don't have to go and invent things to get upset about, right? And so if someone used the wrong word, instead of hating them, can we just say, hey guys, like some folks are genuinely upset about that. Can you be a decent person and use the other word? Like reach out to them instead of like, I condemn you forever and ever, right? And so I lived through waves of this. By the way, on the Black versus African American issue, my ex-girlfriend is Jamaican, as some people might know. I'm Mr. Jamaica. I don't know if you guys knew that.
They don't.
But people are talking about it in the streets.
It's not true.
Okay, fine. She was Miss Jamaica. That doesn't necessarily make me Mr. Jamaica, but you know I am. Okay. Anyways, get to the point. She did not like African American because she was not African American. She was Black. She's from the Caribbean. She's not from Africa, and so. And that's okay, that's okay. And by the way, she doesn't have to say, no, I don't want anybody else being called African American, and she didn't, right? And we could be a little bit more open-minded about all that. I remember when I was growing up, people used to say Oriental like Asian. Like it was not an offense. It was, yeah, when I was younger, it was not at all offensive, at least as far as we knew, okay? And then it became offensive, and there was a big fight over it. People would say, oh, you call rugs Oriental, you don't call people Oriental. I was like, you call rugs Turkish, and you call people Turkish, okay? But you know what? The weight of the community was clear.
Exactly.
And they preferred Asian, so any decent person would switch to Asian. Because what are you gonna go, purposely offending people for why? Are you a bad person? Right?
Exactly.
And talk like a real person, right? No real person, no average guy's going around going Latinx. Have you ever gone to East LA and heard anybody say Latinx? I don't know, I haven't. I've gone to East LA. I know a lot of Latinos. I don't know anybody who says Latinx other than progressives who are, in a certain group, right?
Exactly.
And so, but most importantly, and by the way, we lost a lot of Latino votes to Trump.
Yes.
And they weren't concerned about Latinx. I mean, I love that. Over 50% said, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. You know what matters? Your wages, your health care, those things matter, jobs, right? And Trump tricked them into thinking that he might be able to get them jobs. When they turned to the Democrats weren't talking about jobs or wages or health care, when they could have been, because they have the better policies, right? But instead they were talking about Latinx. So now.
By the way, real quick, the Democratic Party in the state of California is very quickly losing the Latino vote. First of all, let me just say, the mismanagement of the state of California by the Democratic Party is obvious, it's clear, we see it in our streets on a daily basis. So with that said, I can understand why Latino voters, who by the way, I mean, the Democratic Party has taken Latino voters for granted. Same with Black voters. And so if you're not going to provide material benefits to these demographics, what makes you think that they're gonna just continue voting for you no matter what? So I mention that because you're right, Cenk, they're far less concerned about labels and language policing. And they want to focus on issues that actually improve their lives. Unfortunately, they're not gonna get that from the Republican Party. But I think that it's clear that they feel as though they've been taken for granted by the Democratic Party.
Are you kidding me? It looks like Gavin Newsom's gonna lose a recall election. It's unbelievable, because they're so incompetent, because they're so obsessed with helping their donors. It isn't about being against the left, it's that we can all see the corruption Hello, wakey, wakey, Democratic Party, we see you. Anyways, last thing is, I just want to double down on the best point made, and it was by Anna.
Thank you.
Okay.
I agree.
So, corporate Democrats use gender and identity issues like this, and Latinx partly is a gender issue because they don't want to say Latino or Latina. That's why they're saying Latinx, right? They use identity issues like that as a substitute for taking real action. And so, but voters prefer actual economic action. Joe Biden was incredibly popular in the beginning of his term. Why? Because he sent checks to people. He actually helped them when they needed help, both in relief checks, unemployment checks, etc. Now, after that, he took a siesta, if you will, and it hasn't been heard from since. And now his popularity is in the gutter because people see, oh, he's not doing anything. And meanwhile, of course, they're putting out all this, and they're not always nonstop identity politics, right? And did it help anybody? No. And guys, one more time, there's serious, massive racism in the country. It's real. And you minimize that as well when you start talking about, names and words and nonsense that community itself doesn't care about, instead of addressing the actual issues, both economic and social.